I still remember the exact morning everything changed. It was a quiet Tuesday. The kind of quiet that older houses carry after someone you love is gone. I was standing in the kitchen wearing my old blue bathrobe, holding a cup of coffee that had already gone cold. Outside the window stood the tall maple tree my late wife and I planted the year our son was born. The leaves had turned deep orange. For a moment, I just stood there, staring at that tree and thinking about nothing. And that's the strange thing about life-changing moments. They almost never announce themselves. My name is Robert Hale. I'm 64 years old, retired, and for most of my life I owned a small construction company that I built from a single pickup truck and a toolbox. 36 years of work. Long days, longer nights. But it paid off. When I retired, I had a large house, a guest cottage on the property, and enough savings to live comfortably for the rest of my life. But money doesn't fill silence. 3 years ago, my wife Margaret died of cancer. And after the funeral, the house felt different. Too quiet. Too empty. My son Daniel visited often, but he had his own life. A year after Margaret passed, he married a woman named Lena. At first, I thought she was a blessing. She cooked meals for me. She called to check if I needed groceries. She even helped organize some of Margaret's old paperwork when I couldn't bring myself to touch it. I remember telling Daniel once, "You married a good woman." 6 months later, Daniel asked if he and Lena could move into the guest cottage behind my house. It had been empty for years. He said it would help them save money. And honestly, I liked the idea of family being close again. So I said yes. For a while, everything felt almost normal. Sunday dinners returned. Football games with Daniel on the couch. Lena would bring over homemade soup twice a week. Sometimes we would all sit on the back porch and talk until sunset. For the first time since Margaret died, I didn't feel completely alone. But small things started happening. Tiny questions. Lena would casually ask about my finances. "Robert, have you updated your will since Margaret passed?" Or, "How much land is attached to the house?" Or, "Do you still have investments in your old company?" At first, I assumed she was just being thoughtful. Looking back now, those questions were not casual at all. One evening, Daniel suggested something strange. He said Lena should have access to one of my bank accounts. "Just in case something happens to you suddenly," he said. I hesitated, but Daniel insisted it was for emergencies. Eventually, I agreed. And that decision almost cost me everything. The morning that changed everything. That Tuesday morning, Lena stopped by early. She brought a container of soup and said she was late for work. She set it on the kitchen counter, grabbed her keys, and rushed out the door. About 20 minutes later, I noticed something. Her canvas tote bag was still leaning against the kitchen stool. I picked it up to place it by the door so she wouldn't forget it later. But when I lifted the bag, a folder slid out and spilled across the floor. I crouched down to gather the papers. And then I saw something that made my chest tighten. My name was printed at the top of the document. And beneath it, a signature that looked exactly like mine. But I had never signed that paper. My hand started shaking as I read it. It was a power of attorney document. It gave Lena full control over my finances and medical decisions, effective immediately. There were more papers in the folder. One transferred the beneficiary of my retirement account to Lena. Another showed an application for a $2 million life insurance policy on my life, with Lena listed as the sole beneficiary. I sat on the kitchen floor staring at those pages. Everything around me felt frozen. The coffee, the sunlight through the window, the maple tree outside. But my life had just changed forever. I quietly took photos of every document. Then I put everything back exactly where it had been. And that afternoon, I called the one person I trusted completely. My wife's best friend, Evelyn. She had spent 20 years working in estate law. When she saw the documents, she didn't hesitate. "Robert," she said quietly, "that signature is forged." Evelyn told me not to confront Lena. Not yet. Instead, she sent me to a lawyer she trusted. Within hours, my bank accounts were frozen. An investigation was opened. But the detective asked me to do something very difficult. "Act normal," he said. For weeks, I had dinner with Lena and Daniel like nothing had happened. I smiled. I joked. Inside, I felt like I was living with strangers. Then one night, the security camera on my driveway recorded Lena talking on the phone. Her voice was clear. "She has over $1 million in assets," she said. "Once the paperwork clears, everything transfers." The man on the phone asked, "And the insurance?" Lena answered calmly, "Already active." That recording changed everything. 6 weeks later, police cars pulled into my driveway early one morning. I watched from my kitchen window. Officers walked to the guest cottage. Lena opened the door. The moment she saw them, her face went completely still. They arrested her right there. The man she had been working with, a financial advisor who targeted widowed homeowners, was arrested the same day. But the worst part came later. My son Daniel had helped her set up the bank access. He claimed he didn't know the full plan. Maybe that was true. Maybe it wasn't. But the damage was already done. The court case lasted months. Lena was convicted of fraud, forgery, and elder financial exploitation. The advisor received a longer sentence. Daniel accepted probation for his role. He tried to apologize later. But some things in life, once broken, never return to what they were. The guest cottage is empty again now. The maple tree outside the window is taller than ever. Sometimes I sit in the same kitchen chair and drink my coffee, and I think about how close I came to losing everything, all because of a bag someone forgot to take with them. Sometimes the truth doesn't arrive with warnings. Sometimes it simply falls onto the floor in front of you.